My name's John, and this is Simon. We've worked as content creators for some time and wanted to share delicious knowledge from the cookie jar. So if you got some time, you're welcome to the NavBar. Hello, and welcome to day number 2. This is the second stream of a 3-part series that I'm putting together. Well, yeah, hopefully 3 parts. We will see. Might end up bleeding into next week. I am toying with the idea of maybe doing a separate stream just on refactoring this code base to TypeScript, so that there's like a resource for everyone. So if people want to learn how to do this in JavaScript, they can watch the streams. If someone wants to learn how to redo that in TypeScript, then they can, I guess, watch the streams and then refactor it in that last one. Not that it'll be that hard. There won't actually be that many types, but I thought it'd be a fun one to go through. Yeah, haven't fully decided whether I'm going to do that. So let me know if you think that would be useful in the comments. And yeah, if enough people are keen for it, then I will give it a go. So if you didn't join us yesterday, well, firstly, make sure you check out that video. Let me share my screen. This one. Cool. And so this is the video from yesterday. And yeah, I highly recommend you go and check that out. Or even better, go and check out this playlist that I will be updating each day. And this will have, all of the videos, whether it becomes a 4-part series or a 5-part series or a 25-part series, they will all be in this playlist. So make sure you check back regularly for that one. But if you didn't join us yesterday, basically we started building a super over-engineered app to display our show notes for each episode of the NavBar podcast. And so this is a new podcast that myself and Simon Frashliotis have recently created. And yeah, we help you navigate through web development and raise the bar of your content creation. So yes, it is a super cool podcast. I highly recommend you go and check it out. Give us some subscribes and things over there. You can listen to it on Spotify if you want, or you can listen to it on any of those podcatcher platforms. But yeah, highly recommend you check that out. But to kind of put together each of these episodes, Simon and I have this Notion database. And so this is kind of like, we use this to like track where every episode is up to, and then slowly fill it out with more and more information. And by the time an episode goes live, we end up having quite a huge amount of show notes. And it's all filled with all of the things that we talked about and lots of resources and things. And so it would be good to build a website where we can just basically display each of these related show notes for each episode. So that's what we started doing yesterday. So we built a brand new Remix application, and we configured Tailwind CSS. We then wired up pulling data from the Notion API so that we could display this. So basically, when we have an idea, we dump it here, and then it goes through planning and ready to record, and then we have it recorded. Once we've edited it and scheduled it for release, it goes into ready to release. And then released is each of the episodes that have gone live. So basically anything that's in this column, this released column, we wanted to pull from the Notion API and then display in our application. So this is where we got to yesterday. And so this is basically taking a list of all of our different episodes that have been published. So they're all poorly styled here on the left. And then clicking into any of these will apparently give us an application error. Oh, right, of course, because the server isn't running. That's fine. We can have that kind of application error. So once we have the server actually listening, you see it takes a little bit of time for us just to render the first render of this page where we go and get those episodes, because this isn't really the most performant application. There we go. It's just swapped out. So there wasn't actually anything wrong. It was just taking a really long time to load, which is not a very good user experience. And if we click on another one, you'll see that the URL has changed, but we haven't actually swapped out the content. And there we go. We've swapped out the content now. If I click back on Simon's origin story, it takes a long time to load that. So yeah, this isn't, it's really not the most performant thing, but that's kind of perfect for this example because it represents a very common real world problem where you either like you don't own the API that you want to improve the performance of, therefore you actually can't fix it, or you just have some kind of legacy system that runs like your entire company, and everyone's too scared to go and touch it and change anything. But it just takes a really, really long time to give you those results. So, yeah, I think this is a really common use case where you have something that's out of your control, and you want to be able to control it. And so, one solution to this that was shouted out yesterday was that we could use cache control headers, and so we could use the stale while revalidate. Um, And so what this does is, well, if you're familiar with the revalidate prop in an XJS, in get static props function in Next.js, basically it gives you an amount of time that this static content should be considered fresh, and then after that time, it will go and regenerate new results. But while it's regenerating the new results, you'll still get that stale content. So it's a way of serving up your content really, really quickly, and having a really performant app, but still being able to set a threshold for how long you want that data to be considered stale. And so, oh, sorry, be considered fresh enough to serve to the user. So, stale while revalidate is a header that you can set that basically does exactly that. And so, when we generate the HTML page for the first time, we can use stale while revalidate to tell the browser or we can use max age to tell the browser how long to cache that for, and then stale while revalidate to continue serving up the stale results while we fetch fresh ones. So this is another really good solution to this problem. And if you're interested in going deeper, Ryan Florence had an amazing video. I think it was maybe on the Remix channel, which was all about caching. Let's see. Introduction to HTTP caching. This and the following one of CDN caching, static site generation, and server-side rendering. These two videos are incredible, and I will chuck them in the show notes for this episode because, they just super educational and really, really, the perfect resources for learning about HTTP header caching. But what we are going to do is we're going to build a caching layer that sits between our Remix application and the Notion API. So currently, whenever we refresh this page or do anything, our Remix application is making a request over to the Notion API. And it's kind of making lots of requests to the Notion API, which is why it's taking so long, because it's making a request for all of these results. And then the one that we have selected, it's then making a request to go and get all of the blocks inside the body for that page. And then it's taking those blocks and turning them into Markdown. And then it's taking that Markdown and turning it into HTML. So it's doing a whole bunch of steps, which is taking a really, really long time. So rather than us going and fetching fresh data every single time and doing all of that work every single time we load the application, we can instead build a caching layer that sits in between. And so that sits in the middle. And every time a request comes in for data from the Notion API, it can either serve it really, really quickly from the cache. So it'll have a cache in this middle layer. It can either give the response straight away, or it goes off to the Notion API and gets fresh results, and then caches them before sending them back to the user. So, so it will be a much more efficient system. Dogen has shout it out. Hi, John. Hello, everyone in the chat. If you are joining me live, let me know where you are joining me from. And I will even be kind enough to turn off my backup that's currently running, my cloud backup that will be chewing up all of my resources, so that it doesn't break our stream. Cool. Hopefully that's a little bit better. I don't know if you're actually experiencing weird issues, but I just saw that the connection speed is a bit low. So let me know if it's unbearable and I will work out what else might be going on. But yes, thank you. Welcome to the stream, Stojan. Did you join us yesterday? Do you have the context of what we are building? Or is this completely fresh? Where were we? So yeah, we're going to build this caching layer, and we're going to use Cloudflare Workers to build that. So Cloudflare Workers are just serverless functions that run at the edge. And so the edge just means a collection of distributed servers across the world. So if someone outside the US requests data, like me here in Australia, then they don't need to wait for that request to go all the way to the data center in US West and then come all the way back again with those results. We could just go directly to the Cloudflare worker that's running at a server much closer to us. So in my case, I'm in Melbourne, Australia. My closest CDN node would probably be Sydney. And so rather than going all the way over to like California or whatever, it would just serve it directly from Sydney. So yeah, making things much more closely geographically located to where our users are. But to actually like cache that data, we need something to remember those values and somewhere to store them. So all caching is just remembering a value, and then later you can say, what was that value again, rather than going and asking for it again from the server. Can I just remember what it was from last time? So to cache the data, we'll be using Cloudflare's KV storage, which is just a special cache that's also globally distributed and is just available within our Cloudflare workers. So it makes it, very convenient that our serverless functions are all as close as possible to the user, and then the actual cached data is also as close as possible to the users. So hopefully giving them their responses very, very quickly. Sojourn is saying this is the first time catching me live, not on a Superbase stream. Right. So yeah, with our Superbase Happy Hour stream, we usually do that every, it's Friday morning my time, but usually Thursday evening for the US. And so yeah, this is a much more convenient afternoon casual time for me, but maybe won't be the best for everyone else in the world. So that's why these videos will be available on YouTube anytime you feel like watching them, or anytime that is convenient for you. There were some connection glitches when you made the shout out, but it's all good now. Okay, so hopefully I didn't ruin the start of the stream with a whole bunch of glitchiness, and hopefully all of that explanation was actually understandable and well articulated, and not crunchy robot sounds of a bad quality stream. But hopefully that should be all good now. It looks like the connection speed has increased. So yes, in summary, we have built a Remix application that requests data from the Notion API, and in today's stream, we are going to build a Cloudflare caching layer in the middle that proxies our requests across to get fresh data if it doesn't have it in the cache, but hopefully has it in the cache and can just serve it up really quickly. And then tomorrow we'll look at over-engineering this even further, and adding a GraphQL server, or turning our Cloudflare layer into a GraphQL server, and implementing scheduled tasks to refresh our cache and all of those crazy things. But for now, we are going to look at creating a Cloudflare worker. Actually, one more shout out. If you are interested in taking this further, and you like what these streams are about, you want to learn more about caching, want to learn more about Superbase, and want to learn about how Superbase solves this problem in an even better way than what we're implementing in these streams, go and check out my brand new, entirely free Egghead course, cache Supabase data at the edge with Cloudflare Workers and KV storage. So as you can imagine, it's quite a similar kind of a similar problem that we're trying to solve. But by using Supabase, rather than needing to set up a manual scheduled task to refresh the data, we can actually subscribe to changes in the database. And then anytime any of the data changes, Supabase can automatically update our KV stores. So yeah, a little bit more of a nicely automated, more close to real time solution. And it's only 28 minutes long, or 14 minutes if watching on 2x speed. So I highly recommend you go and check that out. Hey, Mahmoud is joining us, who I used to work with at Prisma, which is very exciting. And I pronounce it kaching. Yeah, there is a lot of debate about this caching, all kinds of different pronunciations for this one. So I usually just wait for like the other person to say the word, and then I just repeat it however they say it. But I usually say caching, although I think I have been told before that the correct term is caching. But we will be doing caching in this stream. So let's build a Cloudflare worker. So we are running our application here. So if we quit that, actually we will leave this running, and we might create this in a completely separate folder. We probably could create it in the same folder, but just to avoid any craziness, or even if you just wanted to build this part of it separately from the rest of the Remix application and just build a little caching layer that sits separate from the rest of your application, then you can build it like this. So I'm going to change out of that folder and create a new folder. Actually, I think I can just do it by creating a Cloudflare worker. So I'm going to use the Wrangler CLI, which you can install by doing npm i-g wrangler, and you can do at latest if you want the latest version. And then that will give you access to this Wrangler command. You need to also log in, and so this will authenticate with your Cloudflare instance and give you the ability to modify things in your Cloudflare, like create Cloudflare workers and publish them and things like that. Because yeah, it'll all be wired up to this CLI. But since we've already done all that, we are just going to initialize a new Cloudflare worker, and we're going to call this one cache. And this is going to ask us some questions. So would we like Git to manage this worker? Yes, please. There's no package.json found. Would you like to create one? I certainly would. Would you like to use TypeScript? Ooh, presented with the same question we were yesterday. I just stopped using these CLI tools that just like put me on the spot on these streams. But I'm going to say no. And so, yeah, as I mentioned yesterday and at the start of this stream, I want to make these as accessible as possible. So I'm going to do everything in JavaScript. But I am considering making an additional stream where I refactor the whole project as a TypeScript project. And so if that is something that you think would be interesting, let me know, and I will be more likely to actually do it. So you can create a couple of different types of Cloudflare workers. I'm going to create a fetch handler. And then once that's finished, we just need to change into that folder, if we can spell the folder correctly. And then we can open it up. I guess we'll open up a second VS Code here. And so this is what our Cloudflare worker looks like. So if we get rid of all this stuff, it is simply a function that, sorry, it's an object that's being exported as the default export. And then in there, we have an async function for fetch. And so basically, when someone makes a request to this Cloudflare worker, what do we want to do? So here we're returning the new response, hello world. And so if we want to run this, we could say wrangler dev. And so that's the command to run your code in development mode. So this isn't hosted on Cloudflare yet. It's just running on localhost. And you'll see that that is listening at localhost over port 52995. Cool. So we can oh, maybe I'll just copy this, and I'm going to need to rearrange some things again. Maybe I'll do like this. And we see the text hello world. And now if I come back here, and if I were to change this to hello Cloudflare Worker and save this, I don't need to rerun the development server, but I do need to refresh the browser, and then we see hello Cloudflare Worker. So whatever we return from here is going to be displayed in our browser or come back from our Cloudflare Worker as the response. I guess we can just move all of the logic across from our other application and just see how we go. So we have this is our Remix application. And so everything in our Remix application at the moment is under app routes. And then we have this episodes.jsx file. And in the loader, which, if you remember from yesterday, is runs on the server before our component is rendered. So whatever we return from our loader is then available in our component, and it's available on the first render, so we don't need to worry about any of those loading states or checking whether we have got that data back yet. If the component renders, then we have that data ready to go. So I guess we're just going to take all of this and move it across to our other file here. Actually, I might leave the return new response part because we'll need to talk about that. And I guess we will need to return some stuff here. So the way that Cloudflare workers work is that you return a new response, and this response can only be text. So here we've got the text hello Cloudflare worker, but this we want to be episodes, but episodes is a big JSON object. And so this is going to get this response, or it's going to get this big JSON object passed to our response, and we're just basically going to get an error because it's going to say, I don't know how to deal with that. We're going to get all kinds of errors, like the fact that we haven't got these packages like the Notion package or our API secret or our database ID. Yeah, we're going to have to do some more plumbing. But we will first solve this part of the problem. So if we want to return a new response that is a big JSON object, then we need to turn that into a string. So we can say json.stringify, and we can turn a big JSON object into a string. But then we need to tell whatever client is requesting this, we need to tell it what data to expect or what they're going to get back. And so we need to pass an additional property, which is a configuration object or something that where we can specify some additional properties about this response. And we want to set some headers where the content type is application/JSON. I think that should be enough. And I don't know if this is actually required, but usually content type capital C, capital T. So now we're returning a new response. We're stringifying up those episodes, and then we're just sending back headers saying the content type that you should be expecting from this response is application JSON. So then the client can say, okay, cool, this is just a big JSON object, and turn it into the JSON representation. But we are going to have lots and lots more errors. The first one being that we don't have this Notion API client installed. So we're going to have to install that again. And so this is just the same as you would with any other like Next.js project, Remix project, NPM project. We just want to npm install. And then I think it was at Notion. In our package.json, we have at Notion HQ/client. I'm going to copy that one, and I will just paste it here. And we also want our I guess we'll be using all of this, won't we? Ooh, I haven't checked whether this is actually going to work in a Cloudflare worker because it has a slightly different environment to Node. Um, but I guess if it was working here in a it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Let's give it a go. So we're going to install the Notion to MD package, and we're also going to install the marked package. Cool. And so now, if we wrangler dev, we should get an error because we haven't actually, or maybe we'll get an error if we try to load this page because we haven't actually imported anything. So up here, we are going to import a client from Notion HQ/client. That looks good. So that gives us this client. We still need to specify some environment variables. So I'll do these two in a second, but then we're using Notion, going and getting all of these response. This should actually be all good. Yeah, actually, maybe the bigger problem that we're having here is when we go to a particular episode. So if I look at our ridiculous setups, it's taking all of this time to go and get that data. And then if I stall long enough, it will swap it out like that. And so this like slug route is actually probably more of a problem than this list of episodes. But I guess we're gonna have to do both of them. So we'll do the episodes first. Disregard everything I was saying. All right. So we probably just need our Notion API secret and our database ID. So the way that we can specify this, because we're using Wrangler here, we can say Wrangler secrets create, maybe? Nah, Wrangler secret. Wrangler secret create. Maybe I should just say -h, and we see it's put, delete, or list. So I guess I will do put, and then we want this to be our Notion API secret. And or is this? It does. Excellent. Okay. I am going to need to grab this from this other project anyway. So I'm going to pull this off screen. Sorry, chat. Because this value should stay nice and secret. All right. That's a big, long secret. And that looks like it's worked. So then we also want to say we want to put a database ID. And this one's not actually secret at all, but we're just going to declare it as a secret because why not? Cool. So now we have created our two environment variables. So now if we say wrangler dev, it's going to basically when we said wrangler secret put, we were creating a new secret off in our actual Cloudflare account. So that is living in our environment where our code is actually going to be running when we publish it. But by using our dev command, it actually pulls down all of those secrets and things. So we can conveniently use them here in dev, but then we don't need to change anything when we publish them because they're already available in Cloudflare, which is very, very convenient. So that should be all good. And we can, I guess we can test that this works properly before we go and do any of this stuff by just logging out our database ID, because again, that one isn't really secret. And everything else should actually maybe work. So let's give it a go. So if we head back over here and refresh, we get nothing. Did we crash something? No, we're just running on a different port again. This might be because we're running our other server on the 8787 port that Cloudflare usually uses. So why don't we just quit our other development server, because we probably don't need this right now because we're going to be working on Cloudflare for a little bit. But we can work this out when we're ready to come back to it. So let's say wrangler dev, and I bet this is going to give us an 8787 port, which it is. So now we can change this to just be localhost 8787, and we see a nice big error. And this is saying that database ID is not defined. Yes. So this actually isn't just like globally available. This does actually this does need to be injected in. And so I think it actually gets passed in as the second argument here. Basically, an object that contains a whole bunch of environment-specific stuff. So once we start dealing with KV stores, they will also be passed in here. But all of our environment variables get injected like this. And so now when we console log, I might just refresh this and then refresh this. And we still have an error. That Notion API secret is not defined. So we want to also bring that one in. And I might just restart this again, maybe. And refresh this. And oh, it actually just worked. It worked first time. All right, stream done. We're good. Go home. No, we'll finish that off in a second. But Mahmoud has said that does your wrangler.toml file contain the secrets? So yes, this is another way that you can specify them. The reason that I'm not specifying them in the wrangler.toml file is that usually gets committed to source control. So if you push this repo up to GitHub, which is what I'm going to do, then it would be there in plain text. And so a way that you can avoid that is by, if you are using the Wrangler CLI, then you can use that dev command to pull down a full dev environment. And then, yeah, we get access to those environment variables without needing to leak them out anywhere. But yeah, there we go. This part worked. That is awesome. So we now have this working. So I guess we could wire up a fetch request from our app. So the way that we deploy a Cloudflare worker is we just say wrangler publish, and it's published. Is that right? Published cache. Easy. And so now if I go to this live URL, why is everything working so easily? I don't trust it. Something's going to go horribly wrong soon. So we have this cache.johnmyers.workers.dev, and you see that gets us back all of those episodes. And so this is, as I said before, is globally distributed. So this Cloudflare worker is running in a whole bunch of data centers worldwide. And so, yeah, if anyone heads to this page, they will get this data from the server that is closest to them. But right now, really, it's just proxying a request through from the Cloudflare worker to the Notion API. So we're not really benefiting much yet. The reason that this isn't as slow is because we're just getting the list of each of our episodes. We're not doing the all of that, getting the body blocks and turning them into Markdown and then turning them into HTML. All of that stuff is a little more computationally expensive. And so that's what we really want to be able to fix. But yeah, cool. So now we have this Cloudflare worker running. So we can, we're not running our development server anymore. So we could actually just refactor our remix application here. If we run that again, our remix app, sorry about all these jumping between screens. Got to do more jumping. Got to bring this back over now that I'm not leaking out my secrets. So this episodes.jsx, we've now like replicated all of this stuff. So we can get rid of it. We can just say, we don't need to do any of that stuff anymore. what we want to do is we just want to make a fetch request. Um, and the fetch request is going to our cache.johnmyers.workers.dev. And then that is going to get back all of those results. So this gives us a response. And then we can get the data by awaiting response.json. So because this is a JSON response that we're sending back, we can pass that JSON by calling response.json. And then we should have our data. So now if we return data, wonder if all of this will just magically work. Surely not. If everything else magically works, surely this has to spectacularly fail. It looks like it did work. No, it didn't work. Fetch.json is not a function, and that is because we forgot to await. I think we did. All right. We'll wait for it. We'll be patient. Again, all of these things have become confusingly out of order. So I will put this here. And now if we refresh this, hopefully we will get all of that back. And it looks like cannot read properties undefined of map on 18. So looks like we're not getting back an array of episodes here. So let's console log out on the server side what our data looks like. And then refresh here. And then go back to, now I've got to find where it's running. It's running over here, as far away as possible. All right, cool. So we are getting that. So I think the problem is just that we're calling it data and we're not calling it episodes. So back over in this one, when we get back our data, we could just instead call this episodes. Does this give us back? This gives us back data, and then we were logging out data. And so, yeah, if we just call this instead episodes, and then we wrap this in an objecty, then we should be all good. Let's refresh here. Come on, is it gonna work? Is it gonna work? Looks like it might work. Boom! It works. Okay, cool. So you see that it was still very, very slow because we fixed up this side, but yeah, fetching the actual HTML and working out all of this. Wait, what am I talking about? We haven't even implemented caching yet. This isn't going any faster. This is just proxying through. It's getting way ahead of myself. So if we just load episodes, doesn't want to just load episodes like that. Load our welcome to the NavBar, and then if we go to episodes, so this part is coming from our Cloudflare worker, but we're still making a request, a fresh request every single time. And so what we want is we don't want to have to go to the Notion API if we already know that value, if we already have that in the cache. We just want to serve up what is in the cache. So we need a cache to actually store it in. I am going to just run the server in VS Code so I don't need to keep scrolling all the way over here. We're going to forget about that terminal. If anyone sees me go back to that terminal, you call me out for it, and I will probably not see it because I will be staring at the code and trying to work out which window I'm trying to go to. So I'm going to run npm run dev. No, I'm not. I'm going to run wrangler dev. Yes, so we need a cache. So let's stop running wrangler dev. And we need to create a KV store and then bind it to our Cloudflare worker. And so the way that we do that is we say wrangler KV :name space create. So we're creating a new KV namespace, and then we give it a name. So in this case, I'm just going to call it NavBar. So this is like the container, and then within this, we can store multiple key value pairs. So this has created a new a new KB store called NavBar. So then it's printed out this nice little object here. And so if we copy this, it's saying add the following to your configuration file in your KV underscore namespaces array. So our configuration file is this wrangler.toml file. And we'll get rid of this, get rid of all these other things in the way. So this is our wrangler.toml file. And in here, we can specify a, actually might do it up here. We'll say name spaces. And then I think this is just equal an array. And we dump in our object here. So we're binding our navbar KV store to our worker instance. And so now if we run this in development mode again, so if we say wrangler dev, we don't get any errors. I was expecting an error because it doesn't look like it has attached it. So let's have a look. Where did this tell us to add it? Was I doing this on the entire wrong? I was doing this in the wrong place. This is our remix application, which also happens to be a Cloudflare Worker project, but this is the Cloudflare Worker project that we want, which means we just created that other one. Actually, no, it shouldn't matter where we created it, I don't think. All right, let's see. So if we say namespaces equals this, and then we run wrangler dev again, unexpected field in top level namespaces. I think it's KV underscore namespaces, maybe. Yes, this is the error I was expecting to get. So this error is correct. This error is saying that in development, you should use a separate KV namespace than the one that you'd use in production. So please create a new KV namespace with this command and add its ID as preview ID in your wrangler.toml. So that sounds scary, but really all it's saying is just run the same command. So this wrangler KV namespace, create navbar, and then just append a dash dash preview to the end. And so, yeah, as is really good practice, you want to have a separate development environment from your production database. So you don't want to be like, playing around in development mode with the values stored in your KV store and actually be writing those to production, because this is essentially like the database that's serving up our data now. So yes, we definitely don't want to do that. We want a separate development version or a preview version. And then we have our production one that's deployed to Cloudflare. So this has also given us another object, but actually all we need is just this preview ID. And if we copy this and put it inside this object for our navbar KV store, now when we run wrangler dev, it's going to successfully read in that new KV namespace and bind it to our Cloudflare worker. So now we have this navbar KV store that we can read and write values to and from. So let's have a look at what that looks like. So if we have, again, this is all like very complicated grabbing data from Notion API logic. But the simple version is we're just creating an array of episodes. The reason that we have this silly do while loop with these cursors and things is just to deal with pagination. So this is just a pattern that you can follow to go through all the paginated results, because we just want all of the values that exist in this database. We want every single episode that's been published of the NavBar podcast. And so, we just want to iterate through each of those pages. But all we're doing is going to that database. We're then filtering based on the property status of released. So anything that is a released episode, and we're just sorting it by release date, just to make it more convenient to display. And then Notion gives us a big blob of heaps and heaps of data about each of our pages. And so then we're basically just filtering out all the bits of data that we don't care about. So all we care about is an ID, a title, a slug, a release date, and an audio URL. So at the end of this whole big do while thing and going and getting all this Notion stuff. At this point here, we now have this episodes object, which is or an episodes array, which is an array of all the different objects that only have these fields. So it just has an ID, a title, a slug, a release date, and an audio URL. So since we have this data now, this is probably what we want to write to our KV store. So the way that we do that is, again, this gets injected into this environment object here. So we can destructure out our NavBar KV store. And then down here, we just want to say navbar dot put, I think it is again. And yeah, it takes a key and a value. So that's what KV stands for, is key value. It's just basic key value storage, but it's just really, really fast. So the key is the unique thing that we want to be able to use to identify this, like this record within our KV store or within our cache. And then this is the data that we want to write to it. So this is our big JSON object, but a KV store can only accept or put only accepts a string value as the first value and a string value as the second value. So similarly to our response here, we need to first stringify it. So if we're going to have to do that twice, we should just take that and say const episodes string, very creative name, is set to json.stringify episodes. And then we would want to write our episodes string to our KV store. And then that's also what we would want to send back as our response. And this is an asynchronous action. So we need to await navbar.put episodes, blah, 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 blah. And now if we save and, well, I guess this isn't really going to show us anything, but if we refresh here, it went and got the data from the Notion API, but it also went and wrote it to our KV store. So if we want to see what's in our KV store, we could do a read. So we could actually, now that we have written that to our KV store, we could, I guess, just comment out all of this for now. And we could say, all right, when someone makes a request for all of those episodes, oh, look at that. It's writing it for me. I want to pull those episodes out. And yeah, I guess we don't need this step if we're turning it into a string here. So maybe we could just say episode string is equal to just getting that stringified value directly from here. Yes, but sorry, we await navbar.get and then give it the key for what we want to grab back out. So here we want to grab back all of our episodes. And so now we'll have this episode string, and then we're sending that back as the response. So now we don't have any of this selecting logic from Notion. And so if we were to, I realized we're not doing what I said because we haven't deployed it and we're not running this in dev mode. We're linked directly to the prod version on our Remix application. So what I was about to show you was that if we refresh this, it still works. But if we refresh this, it should still work. And what would be confusing is when I said, like, if we just made this an empty string, this is showing that we're getting the values from that KV store. But now if I refresh, we're still going to get this data because this data is coming, or are we going to get this data? We should be getting this data. Oh, what's happened? I've broken something else. Yes, because this is our fetch handler in our KV store, but it's not actually doing anything. I might need to rerun this one. So this is our Remix. Right, our Remix application isn't actually running. So npm run dev, and then this is running over port 8787. And so now if we refresh our application here, nah, I've broken everything. Let's just close this one. That'll solve the problem. No, that didn't solve the problem. Is this still running anything? No, not running anything here or here. And we're not running our development server. Oh, we are running our development server. Okay. All right. Now we're only running our Notion API. So that was actually showing us what was wrong. That's why it was, man, struggling on this one. A little bit less awake today. Okay. So let's, all right, we'll quit that again. Sorry, I was right. We're Wrangler dev. So we're just going to run our KV, sorry, our Cloudflare worker. We're just going to run that locally. So now if we go to /episodes, this doesn't give us anything because it's crashing, because this is just sending back, oh, it's not crashing, it's just sending back an empty string. And then it's being told that it's application JSON, which it's not. So that's probably why it's confused. And so now if we uncomment this, no, uncomment our, undo our deletion of that. Now, when we refresh, we should get back our data again. Okay, cool. All right. So we have now written this to our KV store, and we can prove that because we're pulling it out of our KV store here, and we're not doing any of that Notion stuff up here. So we can deploy this now so that we can test that this is working the same in our Remix application. So again, we can say Wrangler publish. And that's how fast it is to publish it. We can then say npm run dev to run our Remix application. And now when we refresh this page, so we go to 8787/episodes, we get an error. And why would we be getting an error? What's happening there? So internal error, unmatched JSON input. So here we're making a fetch to that, and then we're getting that response .json, and then we're trying to console log it out. Did we get any console log? No. What's happened here? Cool. All right. So if we have a look here, we are getting our episodes, which comes back as a string. So I don't think it would make I don't think it would make sense to do this, but let's just say json.parse, and let's turn that into a episodes JSON object, or a big JSON array. And then we call json.stringify again and turn it back into an episodes string. Just doesn't make any sense to me, so I hope this isn't what's going on. And if we then publish again, and we come across to our application and refresh, we then get cannot read property null. So now we should have an error here that we're getting back null. Okay, so can anyone guess why we're getting back null? Can anyone in the chat guess why we're getting back null? You can do this. I just did it, finally, after thinking about it for too long. When we created a preview version of our KV store, that's completely separate from production. And so we updated the value in our local KV store. But because I've commented out all of this code here, we're not actually ever going back to the Notion API. And we're never calling this navbar.put and writing the episodes on our prod version of our KV store. So we need to uncomment this again. Whoa, not delete, uncomment. And then we can just comment these two out. So we're turning it into our big episodes string, and then we are writing it to our KV store under the key episodes. And then we are sending that back as the response and saying the application type to application JSON. So that should be all good. Let's republish this one. And then let's go and refresh our remix application. And then we should see our episodes, which is good. So we've got that working again. But now they should be in the KV store. So now we can do that process again, and we can comment out all of this stuff going off to Notion and uncomment this stuff, pulling the data from our KV store, proving that it has to be in our KV store. So now when we publish this, make this the version that's live at cache.johnmyers.workers.dev, and then we refresh, you'll see that we're getting that super fast. Like it's like almost instantaneously fast. It's crazy. Cool. Okay, so that's coming out of our KV store now. And oh my God, we only have 4 minutes left. I don't know where all of the time went. So we're just going to quickly write some logic up in our worker to only go to the Notion API if we don't actually have results that come back from our KV store. So let's move this up the top. And up here, we want to say, all right, the first thing we want to do as soon as someone calls this endpoint is we want to first go and check our NavBar KV store. So we want to go see if we have the value yet. So we say we await navbar.get episodes. We go and get all of those episodes, which again is a big string. And then we want to pass that into a JSON object. So we want to turn it into a big array of all of our episode objects. So then we have this, which is back in JSON format. So then we can say, well, if we actually have episodes, or I guess if we already have these episodes, so we have a cached version, then there's no need to go and actually talk to Notion at all. And so it looks like GitHub Copilot has worked it out here. But we can basically send a response straight away, and we don't need to go off to Notion and do any of that work because we already have the value. So we're going to return a new response, which is us stringifying our episodes, and then we're setting the headers to be application type JSON. We can get rid of this just so it's consistent with our other one. And then at this point, we have either returned, we've either sent that response back already, or we want to actually do this work. And so if we uncomment all of this stuff, then we go off to Notion. We're going to have name clashes here. So I'm going to make this, well, actually, we might make this cached episodes. So cached episodes, which makes more sense anyway, because we can say, well, if we have the cached episodes, then we want to send back the cached episodes. Otherwise, we want to go and get fresh episodes. So these episodes are fresh ones coming back from Notion. We then need to turn this into an episodes string by stringifying our new episodes that we got back from Notion. And then we want to go and put those in our KV store. And then we want to return that response down the bottom here. Cool. So now, if we were to, what's the best way to do this? Maybe if we said, maybe instead of just being, this is going to be a little bit confusing, but I'm going to do cached episodes. I'm going to create a new object. I'm going to spread in all the values from cached episodes. Actually, that's an array, isn't it? Ooh. All right. I'm going to create, no, that doesn't make any sense. All right. I'm just trying to work out a way that I can send back some additional data saying this thing happened. But yeah, I guess I can stringify a new object. And that new object can have our episodes set to our cached episodes, and it can have is cached set to true. And then maybe we'll do a similar thing down the bottom here, and we will send back, or I guess we'll stringify. Oh, God, that doesn't work. That's so frustrating. All right. All right. We'll just do the cached version so we can see if we then uh, in our remix application, rather than getting just our episodes, or here when we log out our episodes, we'll see what is in there. All right, this isn't going to work properly, but it'll prove our point. We'll be able to console log out what we get back, and we'll be able to see that it's coming from the cache. So if we deploy this new version, and then we refresh here, and then we open up our console, but it's not our browser console, it is our dev console because it's happening in our loader. So if we open this up, we can see that we get back all of these episodes, but we also, no, we don't get it back. It's all a lie. I was wrong about all of it. Episodes is a big array. What's happened? We get back this response, and then we're turning that into episodes. But the response that we get back should be if we have a cached episode. That's because this is a massive typo. I don't know when that happened, but it must have been when I was trying to replace lots and lots of strings, but this should be episodes. Uh, cool. All right. So now if we publish this again, we've already gone over time. So now it's just, now we can just get casual again. So we're expecting that. We're expecting that it's going to crash and not be able to actually read the data because it should be in a different shape now. But we can see that here. So yes, episodes has come back and is cached is set to true. So this is giving us the cached version of this data. And yeah, if we could delete the value that's in there and prove that it's going through that process again. But let's just fake that and say, all right, cached episodes is false. So we don't get anything back from our cached episodes. If we then republish this and then refresh our remix application, this will now be going off to Notion and fetching those fresh results, which we can actually see because we didn't change the shape of it. And if we have a look at what is printed out here, we have our normal episodes. We don't have that is cache set to true. So if that didn't make any sense to you, I'm sorry for getting very complicated there. But I was just trying to prove that this is in fact coming back from our cached episodes. So we can get rid of all of this stuff again and just send back a response that is our cached episodes. So in summary, we have built a Cloudflare worker. So this is a serverless function that will be served at the edge by Cloudflare's network and available geographically as close as possible to whichever user is trying to request our data. We then have a KV store that's also globally distributed and very close to our users. And so when a request is made to this Cloudflare worker, we go and check whether we have the value that they're looking for in the cache. And then if we do, if we have that cached value, then we send back an early response straight away, and we don't need to do any more work with going off to the Notion API and refreshing it. But if we don't have that value, then we need to make the user wait because we need to go and get the value that they're asking for. So then we go off to Notion, we get the fresh episodes, we stringify them and then write them to our KV store, and then we send back the response. So then the next person that comes will receive this nice cached version. And a little extra tidbit, the reason that KV storage is such a cool thing to use with this is that if you imagine you have multiple CDN nodes, so multiple servers that are all serving this Cloudflare worker, and you have multiple KV stores, as you can imagine, you might end up in a state where you have lots of different versions of that value. Because if someone goes to so from Australia, where I am, if I was to go to the Sydney data center and get the KV store result for the Sydney one, and then that was updated, that would now not match another value that a different KV store has. So because you have copies of this all over the place, it would usually be a problem that you would have, that they would all be out of sync and not have the same value. But the way that KV stores work is when you update the value for one of them, it then propagates that value all the way throughout the rest of the edge network. And so you end up, it's what's called an eventually consistent system, where eventually all of the different KV stores will reflect the same value. And I think the amount of time that it might take to update the entire edge network is only something like a minute. And so, yeah, it's very, very cool that you don't need to manage any of that yourself. You can just say, I just want to change the value for this KV store, and then it's automatically going to go and propagate to all of the other ones. All right, that's everything that I wanted to go through. Hopefully, I didn't rush through it too much. Hopefully, it made sense enough. I was planning to build out the HTML part of this as well. And so, yeah, maybe we'll just, we'll get started with GraphQL tomorrow. It'll be fun. That'll actually solve one of the problems that we need to go through next. So, cool. That'll work. That'll be fun. So, where's my browser? Yeah, I will push up this this code so that both repos are available, and then I'll update the description of this video so that you can go and check out the code if you would like and pour through it yourself. If you've enjoyed this, I highly recommend you go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. So youtube.com/c/John Myers. Go and click subscribe and go and click that little notification bell, and then you can find out when I'm going live with things like this or publishing other videos. If you didn't see the video from yesterday, make sure you go and check that out to see how we built that remix application. That's not the thing that I'm talking about. That one is. So go and check out that video to see how we built that remix app. If you're not already doing so, come and follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/JohnMyers_IO. And also go and subscribe to the NavBar. As I said earlier, you can go and stream this on Spotify as well as any other platform, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Google Podcasts. It's on all of them. So go and subscribe to the podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And I will see you tomorrow for, I don't think it's going to be the last stream. I think I'll be streaming more next week because I don't think we're going to get it finished. But it was a fun, ambitious goal. But I will see you for part 3 tomorrow where we play with GraphQL. I'll see you there. Thanks. My name's John, and this is Simon. We've worked as content creators for some time and wanted to share delicious knowledge from the cookie jar. So if you got some time, you're welcome to the NavBar.